Hello, it is Wednesday, the hump day, as we head into the Thanksgiving weekend in the United States. It's been a really quiet trading week because an awful lot of people have kids off school and a lot of people take the whole week off, not just Thursday, Friday, but it's a shortened trading day in the United States. And sometimes Bitcoin and crypto does really well over the Thanksgiving holiday. In 2022. It was the low really after the Terra Luna debacle, and in 2020 it was a pretty ugly Thanksgiving. It was a bit of a Thanksgiving massacre. Not sure which one we're going to get. But as we head in, sometimes it can give pretty nice trading opportunities. Certainly it used to be, way back in the day before there was all this institutional money in crypto, it used to be that people had a lot of time to trade and there were some pretty decent tradable moves. So I wouldn't close your charts down necessarily and ignore it. The key question really is, has Bitcoin bottomed here, or are we going to turn around and make a base and continue higher? I'm going to start with tech stocks because they are very correlated. There's the correlation between the Nasdaq and the Bitcoin and the crypto market really is strong. And one kind of works as an anchor on the other. So, if crypto wants to rally but the Nasdaq is really heavy, it has difficulty. One of the reasons I'm a little bit optimistic is that there are some really bullish patterns and signs of recovery after the beat up in tech stocks. So if we take a look at Nvidia, the biggest, most important, this is our weekly candle that's setting up after a false breakdown. Obviously we had the news this week that Meta was thinking about swapping their Nvidia gear for Google's AI chips. Nvidia got sold, Google continued its parabolic shoot to the moon. And that seems to have bottomed and eased now. And we've held this kind of previous low here, the weekly 20 moving average, a lot of important supports. For me though, in Nvidia, if we take the entire swing that we have made this year from the April low, we are now underneath this really important 236 fib level. So for me, this is kind of traps us in a pretty nasty range here. 182.56 is that, and that's really kind of what we need to close and hold above if we really are going to see a recovery in Nvidia. And if this is just a little bit of a dead cat bounce after that Meta news shakeout, then this is the level and we are potentially likely to continue lower, and this is from here. And so this is the level I'm watching in Nvidia, 182.50. If we cannot 56, if we can't recover it, I'm afraid this is just a back test of broken support, no matter how good that weekly candle is looking. And remember, that weekly candle doesn't close until Sunday night. There's a few charts I looked at in my group yesterday that were looking really good. First one of them is Apple, which has broken to new highs and taken out the high that we made at the end of October. So a really nice bullish month, and I'm looking at this as a bullish flag, a three-wave move. As long as we hold these new highs or don't break back into the flag, this looks set to continue. And whilst it might have a bit of an anchor from everything else moving lower, quite often they can be a false breakout. A third touch of a trend line or a level can be a false breakout. So we need to see if it can keep going higher here or not, or if we just go sideways and then continue after. And quite a few of these tech stocks have looked really good. We looked at the double bottom in Tesla. Here we are back testing the highs in the middle of this range and the daily moving averages in this one as well. We really need to hold above 420 and push above that daily 50 moving average for this to be complete. If we can't and we turn lower here, this again looks like a drop and a nice three-wave correction before we set up for a bigger move lower. So that's what I'm watching for in Tesla. Google is on its own little moonshot, but quite a few of these tech stocks, and it depends which one you like, really, are setting up to try and bounce. Even MicroStrategy is potentially set up to bounce. If we take a look at Coinbase, which is one of these that has been really badly beaten up, this for me is one of my most favourite reversal patterns, and that is a 3-wave move back to a 50% retrace, and even better when they're dead perfectly equal. And that, if we look at the Coinbase here on the daily and we go back to the low that we made here, let's get rid of that, at the start of 2023, this is a 50% retrace. This is a really nice 3-wave move, and so we so far a pretty nice bounce. We've stabilized, we've gone sideways for a few days. If we look at this on the 4-hour, if you know, when I look at this, I always look at the high before we made the last push lower. That's what we need to take out here in Coinbase. And this 4-hour moving average, and if we do that, then we've made a bottom. If not, we've kind of just bounced back to test a previous swing high, much like we did here. Here was our swing high, bounced to test it, continued lower. And so the key resistance level in Coinbase is here around 262, and I think if we do that, because we've done this 50% retrace move, the move that you tend to see is 50% the other way. So we would retrace 50% of the entire move from the high in July, and that would be a pretty good move. Expect to wobble at 286, but certainly that takes us back into the middle of this range. So a lot of these charts potentially have some bullish moves. I think Robinhood is a really clear, nice little 3-wave measured move. If we look at where we are on the weekly, we are back above this weekly 20 moving average and looking really strong to continue. These exchanges are doing really well, particularly Coinbase and Robinhood. Robinhood, of course, is the one that's looking to tokenize a whole bunch of assets. So not quite over the hump and past the resistance in a lot of these tech stocks, but we are setting up really nicely. One of the other ways to look at a confirmed reversal is above a 236 fib, or a pullback to important supports. And if we look at Amazon, we've done that as well. We've bounced from the daily 200 moving average, which was support in August, and again in October, and here we are, third time off this moving average and looking to push back above these daily moving averages here in Amazon. That's a pretty decent move. What would be bearish here is if we could just go halfway back and we make some kind of topping pattern like this, and then we come back to test this support for a 4th time, then I think we can start worrying in Amazon. So always with these moves, the market's looking to get back into the middle of the range, and that probably would be the swing high and at the start of the year in February in Amazon. And so that would be a more bearish pattern, but more upside at least, looking like it's setting up. So a lot of these tech stocks, for my money, look like they are setting up for an attempt at a year-end rally. Some of them I would take the bounce and get out. As you know, one of my favourite shorts is CoreWeave. Even this one has made a little double bottom here against last Friday's low, and it's stopped going down. I like to think that this is probably a wave 4. So if we go from the high that we made in October, this is 1, 2, 3, and we go sideways, and I think we still have one more move lower to 50 in this one, but the resistance is higher at 92.15. This is where, so if you wanted to bounce and reload a short, which would be my favorite setup here, I think we could bounce back in CoreWeave back up to 90, between 90 and 92 before we see another leg lower in this one. So tech stocks looking pretty good. What does this mean for crypto? Let's take a look at Bitcoin, because we're bouncing. Now, big picture in Bitcoin spot, okay, I'm just going to take everything off so it's tidy and clear. We are bouncing from a pretty good fib retrace level. If we go from the lows in 2022 in Bitcoin, here we are at that 38.2 fib, and the 236 fib, which was at 100, gave us a really decent bounce. We bounced from here to 8%, 108 to 108 from this 100 level. And so this is one of those fib retrace levels where you would normally expect it to try and bounce. So 83,300 is that big swing 38.2 fib level. So far we saw a really nice bounce off the lows over the weekend. We saw in fact a 10% bounce from this low to this high, and when you see this in 5 waves, which it looks like we have seen, I would normally expect a 3-wave pullback back to this swing low and these highs through here, something like this, maybe 50% back, and then another swing. It's possible. So at the moment here it's pretty tricky sideways. We're still underneath important moving averages. If we look at the hourly, it's the 200 moving average. For me, on any time frame, the 200 moving average is the kind of king of the chart. But if we can get above and hold above this, it may be that we've done a really shallow correction here and we are setting up a bigger swing higher here. So this is what I'm watching, and a close and hold above 88,000, and this hourly 200 moving average sets us up for more upside, and 93,000 next, and then second target would be 100,000. It's not in the bag, but it's not out of the question. With the moves sometimes that we've seen previously on Thanksgiving holidays, liquidity, which used to be really good, and there used to be a lot of people trading on a weekend, has kind of gone away. So it may be that the holiday has gone the same way. Let's see where we go. I've talked a lot about what has outperformed this year, and as you know, privacy coins and exchange tokens have been the biggest. I've also talked about my probably 2 favorite, Ripple, I think is set to go higher. And one thing I was really impressed about in this bounce is how Ripple performed. And Ripple bounced more than 10%, really decent bounce from this low here at 1.8, and we got all the way up here to 2.2. In Ripple, in what looks like a very nice 5-wave move. So again, what you're looking for in Ripple, it's counter trend while we're underneath these daily moving averages. And if we look at the hourly, unlike Bitcoin, we're pretty nicely above this hourly 200 moving average. And so with these 5 waves up, I'm kind of looking for a 3-wave corrective move, or a declining wedge, or a break from these highs, and another leg higher in Ripple. So this would be our first swing. We'll see 3 waves and then another leg lower. The problem is from here we could come back very easily to this swing low around 2.04, or maybe the hourly 200 moving average around 2.08. This would kind of then be where the best entry, ideal entry. We don't always get the ideal one we're looking for, but that's kind of what I'm looking for in Ripple. And then of course the bearish case would be just, we do this pullback and we see just 3 waves higher maybe, but in this whole correction ever since the 10th of October shakeout, all of these moves have been, from which it bounced fantastically, all of these moves have been very nice, obvious corrective moves. So I'm just looking to see, was this low that we made on the 21st of November the start of a new upswing in Ripple? Now, a simple way, I like a 4-hour for these entries, is Heikin-Ashi. Switch your Heikin-Ashi on. You can put your moving averages on or not as you like, but we're looking at this nice red pullback, and as soon as this goes green again, that for me is a signal to buy. I also use momentum indicators when they turn up again and we go green. That usually after a correction like this is an indicator to buy. Are we going to see it today? I don't know. It may be that we have to wait for the holiday, or sometimes Friday. I've seen some pretty wild moves on a Black Friday. Certainly a few crypto on sale this time. Litecoin, as you know, is another one that I keep watching. I think Doge is trying to set up as well. I've been watching it fight over this important support and resistance level in Doge. But, you know, this market is one of those where pretty much everything does the same thing. So I don't quite see, there is a risk in Litecoin that we retest the lows. We're a little bit sideways at the weekly 200 moving average, which we know in Litecoin, if we look back over the years, has previously been really good support and resistance. But we can chop around this. If we wanted a really clear buy signal, a bounce off this 200 moving average that closed more than 50% back of this last down, nasty down candle would be a best looking candlestick reversal in Litecoin. So what about these exchange tokens? Particularly, you know, what about the smaller ones that we have been watching? And for example, Hyperliquid. We go to the weekly in this one, same issue. So here's our nasty weekly down candle. If we look at 50% of the open close of last week's move, a close above that 50% level, which is here at 35.27. A close above there this Sunday that says we've bottomed and we're going up. At the moment we're just stabilizing, and we have, you know, sometimes when you move down with a lot of momentum, first thing you have to do is stop going down before you can kind of go up again. So I wouldn't worry about the FOMO or worrying too much that you're going to get stuck. There is a really decent pivot level if we look through the middle here from these highs that we are kind of holding on to in Hyperliquid, maybe a little bit higher here. So the initial high in December 2024 and the lows that we made in June here couldn't close above. So this is quite an interesting support and resistance level around 30 in Hyperliquid. If we look at the on lower, if we go down here on the daily, this also looks to me like potentially this was a three-wave corrective move. So we've gone 3 waves up, 3 waves back. We should maybe, if we're done, we should see another at least 3-wave move higher, and it may turn into something bigger. So not quite, you know, until we get above this level, it's not quite a screaming buy, but I'm watching these for signs that they are bottoming. Of course, Hyperliquid is the other one that has had everybody's attention. Let's find Hyperliquid. Here we go. Now, one thing I'm a little bit worried about in Hyperliquid, when I look at the big drop that we made from September to that October shakeout low and this big 3-wave move, I was thinking that this swing here had a relationship to that one. It may be that we don't. It may be that this is just its own little corrective pattern. So here was our 3-wave pullback, but because this was 3 waves as well, it kind of feels like this should be in 1, 2, 3. And if that's the case, then if I measure this swing here from this high to low, project it from here, we kind of haven't reached that first level where I would expect us to find support around 26.41, where this swing is 61.8 of the first swing. And so potentially this feels like it could fall a little bit lower. If I measure these swings and look at the relationship between them here, this equal measured move, if I've done it right, it's like this, and if it's not, if this is a 3-wave, then it's here. So somewhere in this pink box, which I have drawn, I think is potentially where I would feel really comfortable buying it, more comfortable than I do here. And at the moment, this swing low, you can see this neckline, this 34 level, is a little bit of resistance. So it's starting to feel like maybe we're going to do 5 waves to finish here in Hyperliquid, and this 26 to 28 zone is where I'm watching. If you bought the bounce in Hyperliquid, then this 34 level is pretty important resistance. It's also, of course, that hourly 200 moving average, which is such a breaker of hearts, and we can see really clearly on this hourly the resistance here in Hyperliquid. So those little exchanges, not quite clear yet that they've bottomed. Do I think that they will be good buys when they do? I definitely do. You know, they make money. Exchanges make money. And so investing in anything that makes money is always a good deal. If we take a look at BNB, there's a lot of talk out there about how these market moves have been to do with people shaking out these treasuries, companies, and you know, that is possible. And whenever you get the big boys in, that's always a little bit of a risk. But if I take a look at BNB, so that's obviously the biggest of the exchange tokens, here we are in a really interesting place. The daily 200 moving average, always really good. We're kind of in the middle here, but potentially a good support and resistance level. It's the swing high from December 2024 last year. It's kind of one of those places. So let's take a look and measure the swings. So I kind of feel like this may have been a little bit of an irregular correction here because of this funky looking double top. And you know, this wouldn't be a terrible place for BNB to bottom. The key for me is, if you want to be sure that this has bottomed and is going up again, really we need to take out this daily 20 moving average and these kind of swing lows, this support and resistance level. When I'm really not sure, I use fibs and say, right, you can buy it speculatively underneath this 236 fib, but only when we take that out are we for sure in a bigger reversal pattern. So that comes in at these swing highs and lows at 929. So I kind of like where we are. I don't think it's a terrible idea on a lower time frame if everything else can break above this hourly 200 moving average. I don't think it's a terrible idea for BNB to do the same. And these are really the big guys that we need to get moving if they are going to see a bigger move. And those are the levels that we are watching. So unfortunately, it's not clear. The retest, just like everything else, you know, we've had the bounce off the lows. So if we take a look at Ethereum, of course, then, you know, big fib level in ETH, we're at a big 61.8 retrace from the April low. Every one of the other fib retrace levels have had a really decent reaction in ETH. This is a weekly chart, but if we look at it on the daily, we can see this 236 fib was support, then resistance, this 38.2 big bounce, 50% big bounce. Here we are at the 61.8. So far the bounce hasn't been big, but always these usually are three waves. So this was three waves here, this is three waves. So this pullback should give us another swing higher in ETH, and then we see if we can get above this midpoint 50% level, because fibs are like a ladder, you know, they're like steps. So you go down, and when you take out the previous one that you broke, you're on your way up again. And that's kind of how I see this 3,170 level in ETH. So now we're looking at, having made 5 waves up, are we going to come back in 3 waves and continue higher? And I kind of feel like it's setting up that way, and that's it. Sometimes, you know, we don't do a deep, big pullback to the big level that we're looking at, you know, which would be 2,750 in ETH. We may just do a bit of a shallow 3-wave move, make a nice little bullish flag, and then that's what I would be, that would be my entry. Next swing higher in ETH for a holiday weekend bounce would be 3,170. So yeah, this little pullback that we're having here then tells us if we're going to set up or not, and if we're going to break out above these important resistances. And of course in ETH, if we put our 200 moving average in, that's kind of what we need to hold above and move above. It's still reloading. So for now, for the initial move, you can see here we are sideways at this 200 moving average. For now, yeah, we're in one of those, the retest is the test. What's this pullback, next pullback going to look like? And are we can continue higher and set up an early Santa rally in December? I think a lot of it is going to come down to tech stocks and what is going on there. Obviously, I've been feeling bubblicious for a while, but that doesn't mean, you know, that these markets aren't going to try and gussy up their books a bit to look a bit better into year end, and then we'll see what happens after that. So good luck. Let me know if there's anything you are going to take a look at. I am going to go UK budget. Honestly, I think I have no words for the incompetent management that we have in this country. But that's another story for another day.